UMass Boston was started by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It was started under an act of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The legislature really started UMass Boston, and under authorization of Chapter 562 of the Acts of 1964, that's when UMass opened its doors in September of 1965. Major players, the people who really began were the top people who ended up were John William Ryan, who was the first chancellor of the University of Massachusetts. Alvin Ryan, who was the chairman of the Humanities department at UMass Boston. And UMass Boston really came out of, it was kind of the child of UMass Amherst. So the very first university in Massachusetts, do you know this or you don't know this?
I do.
It came, the first UMass college was in Amherst, Mass. And that was the first, like, the main university. And UMass Boston became, you know, kind of its child whatsoever in Boston. And so major players, I mean, I can list a lot of names for you, but it was mostly the legislature, you know, the state legislature of Massachusetts, which you know, voted to have a state university downtown Boston. There's only one kind of problem, is that Boston State College existed at the time, which was also a state university, and that had existed since, in different forms before that. It had existed since it was the Boston Teachers College in the late 1800s and 1900s. Uninvited, but I couldn't stay away. It existed until the 1970s. UMass Boston existed downtown Boston. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, there was a whole separate campus which was on 100 Arlington Street, and it was in a building that was known as the Old Boston Consolidated Gas Company, and that's where the first UMass Boston existed. And that started in 1965, and the first graduating class of UMass Boston was 1969. But getting back to some of the key players, Paul A. Gagnon was the acting dean of faculty, and he brought in a lot of the best people that he could, you know. There was Ernest Becker, who was the professor of chemistry, and he was chair of natural sciences. Chairman of social sciences, who was a professor, was Richard H. Powers. UMass Boston also had a music program, and they brought in Alvin S. Ryan, who was chairman of humanities. And the chairman of mathematics, who was a professor, was Taffy T. Tanimoto, T-A-N-I-M-O-T-O. And if you go to our website, which is the UMass Boston Healy Library, Archives and Special Collections, you'll find a lot of founding documents that we've scanned and put up online, so that will help you with your research too. There was a lot of different locations that were being considered, but and a lot of people were not completely happy with the fact that UMass Boston would be removed from downtown to the Harbor Point. But it was kind of an area where it was starting to develop. A few years later, the Kennedy Library went out here, and then the State Archives. So it was a good, they felt it was a good location, and they called it the Campus by the Sea. And it was started in probably 1970, 1971 construction began out here on the Harbor campus. And there was a lot of, you know, I've seen over the years as an archivist, 14 years, I've read a lot of things that there were different locations people wanted UMass to move to. Now remember, UMass was downtown. UMass Boston was downtown on 100 Arlington Street, and they occupied several buildings, mostly the Consolidated Gas Company building, and there was an armory, which was this huge old building that looked like a castle, and that was the library. But people were unsure whether they should expand within the city or expand Columbia Point, and that's what they chose eventually. That was what they called the permanent site selection. And if you'd like to do research and build up some more information, we have plenty of records and documents that talk about the founding of UMass Boston downtown, and also the selection of the site